Just let me know when you're ready. Sounded like you wandered away a bit.
Can I just do a test? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you,
Okay.
but you're very faint.
So I'm literally stood like 4 meters away from my microphone right now. On
Yeah,
the other side,
it,
other
it
side of
sounds
the
like
room.
you're 4 meters away, to be honest.
Okay, cool.
Welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show. Kicking off your morning with hobby chat, although we release this in the afternoon, so welcome. Today we're doing Before You Buy Army of Thror. You're joined by myself, the Mayor, and OT.
Hi, everybody.
OT's sort of a Army of Thror specialist at this point, so he'll be doing a lot of the chatting. He's done a lot of games with Army of Thror, so he'll be able to offer his insights. And I'm, of course, just an
not
overall
high-level
SBG god. So, no, sorry,
should
go
be
on.
should be stressed. It's not like high-level games, and my win rate is like 60%, if that. Like, it's not particularly good. So, like, yeah, it's not the Power Gamers episode, this one, but for a general overview of what it's like to play them and to collect them, this is the place to be.
We'll get started. So, what you'll need, probably the least number of books possible.
It's so
the rule
efficient.
manual and the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Are there really? I suppose Danes in there. Yeah. Are there any like things that are optional that are from other books that you could use? Probably not.
No,
You're probably not allying anything, are you?
Yeah, there's also only like 7 models in the army, so yeah, nothing. I mean, like if you want the alliances, it would either be Iron Hills or Dale, because we'll go into that later. But yeah, it should all be in the armies of the Hobbit.
So the overview, the play style of this, high defense, low mobility. They're dwarves.
It's dwarves.
Ease of collection or painting. You've had some experience with this OT, and it says very easy. So
it's aggressive, like it's unbelievable, because like you can get high cost elite models in plastic boxes of I think 20 or 24 for the Erebor warriors and the Grimhammers. So that's like the majority of the models in your army, and then the rest of it, they all come in twin packs. So Thror and Thrain come in a pack together, and then Balin, Dwalin, and Thorin all come in a pack, and then the captains even come in a pack together. So like everything is packaged together in a very efficient way.
Yeah, which does make collecting very nice.
Yeah.
Easy to play. I would say easy to play, hard to play well, maybe.
But I think that goes for almost all armies. Like I think in the grand scheme of things, what you're managing with, I think the skill with Thrors, as it were, is just how you use your sort of master numbers of throwing weapons and things like that. Because like in the games we played, especially against like your Goblin Town, we did really see like how devastating those throwing weapons could be when they're used en masse. But apart from that, like everything's very high defense. You're pretty high fight. You've got some nice banner rerolls, all that good stuff.
They're quite forgiving, aren't they? If you get yourself into a tough spot, they might just grind it out. They're very, they'll survive fairly well. If you accidentally misplay, like you're not just going to lose the game. They're like some rugby teams we could mention. It's hard. It's just hard to beat them. It's not hard to like they don't win. They just don't lose. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Like so we'll go on to this later, but like breaking this army is so difficult, and like getting leader VPs and all that stuff it's such a grind against this army. So yeah, I think what you're saying there is definitely true. Like you just basically like beat your opponent via attrition rather than like tactical nous.
Yeah. So points sweet spot. Low to mid, I'd probably agree with that.
I think it's mainly because of the army bonus. Like, so the army bonus, for anyone who doesn't know, we'll come into this in a second, but it's basically Thror's a 6-inch banner. And the problem is that I think peaks in terms of value are between like 400 to 600 points. I think above that, it starts to be, you've got models outside that range and stuff like that. But like getting all those banner rerolls in that sort of 400 to 600 point range is really good.
Yeah, and they're cheap to collect as well, which is just another bonus.
Yeah.
The competitive viability, though, you put low. I'm guessing that's
Yeah.
because it doesn't see much
No.
top 3 tournament results.
I mean, it's never down the bottom, but it's never
No.
right at the top. And I think it's because in the world of MSBG at the moment, like Thror just doesn't have any cool shit that like kind of breaks the game a bit. And like
Yeah.
it's just always going to be maybe a bit like, I don't know,
There's no
Vanilla
tricks.
Yeah, a bit like Vanilla Isengard maybe, in that like it's never going to be bad, but also maybe it's never going to have that sort of punch to get right the way to the top.
Yeah, and there's no like big surprises that you can really pull. There's not a lot of tactical flexibility. You know, your dwarves, you're slow, you're good in melee, you've got high defense. You've got some options in terms of mobility, but they're not that mobile. You know, when you've got 8-inch goats, but I think you have to be a very good player like Ali King to make dwarves really, really good.
But then I think even like other dwarves get like Erebor Reclaimed, because I've been looking at that recently because I've got a few
they
models
do
for
well.
those. Like, but then they've got the thing with like, you know, throwing on the charge, getting free heroic combat, and you get some like kind of different alliances that let you be a bit more flexible. Whereas I think Thror's is just a bit too predictable and a bit like maybe a bit too easy to counter for like really good players. But I really like it. It's very relaxing to play. I think it's not the same as Army of the Dead exactly, but it's a similar idea of like, actually, even if you lose a combat, you're probably not going to get wounded, and you don't have to worry too much about getting like swept in like one turn, which does happen with some armies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Cool. So we'll move on to the army bonus then. So it says friendly Erebor dwarf models count, so no allies basically. So just friendly Erebor dwarf models count as being in range of a banner if Thror is within 6 inches. Now that does sort of restrict you a little bit in that to get your army bonus, you're also having to take Thror.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think Thror is a very interesting hero in MESBG because I think typically what makes a good hero in MESBG is that they have a threat that like they provide as an individual, whether it's like, you know, the Witch King with magic, or whether it's, I don't know, like Azog, or, you know, Helm Hammerhand with just charging around with heroic combats and killing shit. Thror's very different. Thror basically just holds your entire army together. Like you march him up down the center of the board, and then he gets into combat. He doesn't really kill that much stuff, but also he's probably never going to die. Like I've played, I don't know, I think it's probably between 10 and 15 games with Thror's, probably a bit more than that. And he's never died, and I think he's only taken like 2 or 3 wounds in that entire time. And like, this army bonus is just insane. And like, I've been caught out a few times actually, because it gets to the stage where you just assume you have banner rerolls. And sometimes, like, you never do it on purpose, but your opponent's like, is he within 6? You're like, oh no, it isn't. It's not default. But like, it does feel like that.
I would say as well, my experience playing against Thror is I've only played him with Goblin Town, and I was very fortunate to get Gollum and the Goblin King on him and trap him, but still didn't kill him. So
yeah, and it's just like, I think you know, dwarves are high defense anyway, and D8 everyone's like, oh, that's crazy high, but like D9 is just ridiculous, and it means like, you know, even heroes are needing 6s by 4s normally and stuff like that, and yeah, it's crazy. You do. I think alliances make this army a lot stronger. So I've run it with Dale because I refused to collect Iron Hills until quite recently because it was too expensive, and I thought it was. I mean, I don't think it's actually that fluffy, but you know, we're here now. But Dale's really cool because it just gives you some really nice bows, and I think that's a real weakness of the army because it doesn't have any range stuff. But yeah, it's definitely an army bonus you want to hold on to because it does make your army much stronger.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think you're ever yellow alliancing this army. Like, I can't.
No.
Like in the world of like, you know, like you can maybe with Khazad-dûm lose the army bonus, but you just pick so many other dwarf factions over this without the army bonus because they just do cooler shit.
Yeah, I think you could do some interesting fluffy things with it if you really wanted to. Like, you could take Halls of Thranduil and like pretend that they've attacked a dragon together, or
Hmm.
put it in that time
Yeah,
frame.
it's true.
But I don't think there's too much competitive viability
No,
there.
no, there isn't.
Yeah. Moving on to the
Right,
models then.
the models.
So we've got a few
Ah,
heroes, not that many, but I really love all these sculpts. To be honest,
yeah,
so we've
it's a
got Thror and Thrain that come together. It makes sense.
yeah.
They've got a lot of detail on them.
Mm,
Personally, I think the weird mesh he's got over his beard looks like a nightmare to paint. But what
yeah.
was your experience with that?
It's all fine crap, and it just looks nothing like this. Like,
Okay.
whoever they got to paint this stuff, they deserve a raise because it looks absolutely incredible here. And like, I think on the world of social media or whatever, like you see all these amazing paint jobs. I'm yet to see really one for Thralls, and I do wonder if there might be something behind that of like,
Hmm.
you know, because especially for my Thror and Thrain, like some of the gaps between some of the models when you have to fit them together, like I was so much green stuff, and it just leaves all these blobs and stuff. And it maybe I just got unlucky, but yeah, it's not the one.
Do you think it looks to me like a case of too much detail on the model as well?
Yes, yeah,
Like,
I think it's GW-itis. They've just gone a bit nuts.
yeah, yeah, it's a shame because I really like the poses and
Mm.
if they just didn't have as many ornate carvings on his like his even his fucking like groin
Lego.
protection
Yeah, his leg
has
armor. Like,
like.
why?
Yeah, like it just seems a little bit unnecessary. I know
Yeah,
he's the king and everything's ornate,
yeah,
but come on,
yeah,
you got to make it easy for the average person if you can.
yeah.
Equally, here's the center point of your army, so maybe they
Hmm.
think people won't
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
spending too much time on it.
Hmm.
You've also
The
got young.
Thrain.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
on.
yeah. The Thrain pose is also really cool. Like, it really does look like he's about to like smash someone's head in with a hammer, which I think is really cool. Like,
Yeah,
it looks. It's a bit like the Helm Hammerhand pose, where it looks like he's about to put in some work. But
he looks
um,
pretty menacing.
yeah. The Thorin, Dwalin, and Balin sculpts, like they're fairly cool. I quite like that actually they went to the effort of making young versions of them because obviously there's already a bunch of sculpts of most of these already, but it's just nice that they did these, even if again they came out in fine cast.
Yeah. I quite like the young versions as well. I would
Mm.
say you can use any Thorin as young
Yeah,
Thorin. You
yeah.
probably can't get away with using any Balin. Well, maybe you can,
No.
but
Well, I mean
probably not Dwalin because
he
he's
has
not
this.
bold.
Yeah.
Ballsy.
I mean, like they all have the same equipment, which is nice. Like, so yeah, I think like I personally do just have one Thorin model that I use across multiple different things. Like, I haven't bought different ones
Yeah.
for different versions, but yeah, it's nice these exist. And then the captains are fine. Like, they are quite good in terms of their similarity to the sort of normal warriors and the Grimhammers that these two are meant to represent. It's a bit frustrating that the normal captain doesn't come with the option for a shield because, like, I think you would nearly always take a shield with the captain, but like Girion doesn't come modelled with a bow, and like I don't understand why that's a thing. Like, so yeah, but it's a minor
Yeah,
complaint.
that is a bit weird. Yeah, so then we come on to the warriors. So we've got Erebor warriors and Grimhammers. Nice and
Yeah,
simple. Two
yeah,
options. Thankfully
yeah,
plastic.
yeah.
And you really enjoyed painting these by all accounts.
I had a hoot. They're like these are like detail done correctly. Like, if you look on the Warriors of Erebor, there's just enough little bits that you can paint, but like the coats, just you can go over them with a contrast or whatever if you want to and do them nice and quickly. And then the Grim Hammers, you can kind of do as much as you want. Like, so because mine are all going to be upgraded to the Kingsguard, which we'll look at in a second. I did like little gold bits on them, but if you want, you can just do silver and then dry brush over the top. And like these, they'll look absolutely fine, which is really cool. And it's the type of army that, if you really wanted to blitz an army in a week, this is probably one of the ones that you could do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. The Grimhammers are very easy looking to paint.
Yeah.
Like I know there's a meme about textures, but it really is just metal cloth and then a tiny bit of beard.
Yeah.
That is just, that's going to be a beauty to paint.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I would consider annoying is, I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm annoyed about the lack of variety. I kind of like that it's simple. But maybe the fine cast feels a bit much.
The fact that they're all fine cast is a bit rough. Like, but it is what it is. Like, you can't complain too much.
Yeah, but equally, you buy these 3 boxes of fine cast stuff, and then you're done.
Yes, and that's what partially what makes up for it.
Yeah. So the in-game pros and cons. You'll be very familiar with these.
It's just dwarves. Apart from the fact that this lot come with lots of throwing weapons on like tough frontline warriors, and they get access to spears at a more affordable cost than either the Vault Wardens or the Iron Hills warriors.
It's true.
And like the combination,
and with their free banner.
Yes, and this. So, I mean, it's not exactly revolutionary, but your front line of Grimhammers, your back line of guys with spears, with the banner rerolls, you're basically getting like 3 rolls to win the dual roll, and then you have front guy who, if you've upgraded them to be a Grimhammer, they're strength 4, and they have I think it's called a pick hammer, so they can do like bash or piercing strike and stuff like that. They can 2-hand if they want to. Like, it just does feel much nice, and it's having played a bit of quite a lot actually of Khazad-dûm as well. You really feel the difference of being able to use spears and throwing weapons in this army. Like, it's huge. Yeah, I think looking at the cons, like it's standard dwarf stuff. You can make up for some of these, as we'll look at later, with like allying in. You are going to really struggle against magic. Like, you've got no innate magic defense, and you're moving quite slowly, so you can't really chase down like a caster on a horse, because like the Witch King. I mean, I can't imagine playing against like Black Riders or something with this, because I don't actually know if you would lose necessarily, because I don't really know if they'd have enough will to kill you, but they could just ride around you the entire game and just completely transfix your army in the middle.
I think it's all pretty much spot on. They have some real strengths, but some real weaknesses.
But that's dwarves. Like,
that's dwarves.
It's because when you look at their stat line, I remember you talking about, I think it was the Khazad-dûm warrior, the Khazad-guard or something a while ago. You're like, it's like the perfect stat line. Yeah. And it really is, but it is just nerfed by the fact they only move 5 and they don't really have much cavalry, and it's just like,
in the context of the army, like, imagine if the Khazad profile was in, like, I don't know, like the Eastlands,
elves.
Or
if elves had like a warrior that could actually kill stuff, that they would be completely insane. But it's
but they don't.
But they don't, and that's a good thing. We're not advocating for that, just to be clear. Looking at collecting, I mean, I kind of touched on this already. I personally think it's like some of the best value plastic boxes in the game. Like, just for you can build an entire army's worth of warriors using 2 boxes. I've put no Forge World prices as a bonus, but also like, it's so far down the list of priorities. But if you ever did want to chuck out a couple of Forge World sculpts for like Thror and Thrain, I would 100% get those. But yeah, it's a pipe dream.
Yeah, and then cons. Fine crap. Wait, did you just do cons? Did I just ignore you talking?
No. I did pros. You can fire away cons.
So fine crap. It's a pretty big con, but you've not got much choice, so deal with it. Not a huge painting variety, very repetitive, which is fair, but hopefully if you're doing it pretty quick, because they're pretty simple miniatures. But you could also make it really hard for yourself if you wanted to.
I mean, to be honest, you could do like batches of 12 with this army if you wanted to, like with the Grimhammers. Just like get yourself an airbrush or something, or just a paint bucket, and just slop on that silver paint. You'll be fine.
Or just prime them in silver.
Yeah, it's true.
And then put a wash on them.
And then dry brush, and you're done.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to dry brush.
Oh, always dry brush.
Uh,
You heard
um,
it here. Heard it here first.
so moving on to the example lists, we got two 500 points and a 600 because we said low to mid points is where they're
Yeah.
best. And I
Yeah.
suppose if you went even lower, looking at this
Mm.
first list, we've seen it done.
Yeah.
Just Thror with loads of Kingsguard.
Yep. That
And in
goes
this
up to like,
example,
I think it goes to like 340 or 335 or something if you max out
Yeah.
the Kingsguard.
Yeah.
And that's fucking scary. Like, it's not very maneuverable or versatile, but like
plan A is your only plan.
Yeah, you move in a straight line and you don't lose any models, and then you probably lose because it's a maneuvering scenario, but it's fine.
Yes, exactly. And then, so in this example, you've got Thrall with the Kingsguard, and then you've got Thrain with some Warriors of Erebor with Spear and Shield. And I'm guessing
Yeah.
they, Thrall and Thrain go in the front line with the Kingsguard, and then you've got the spears at the back as required.
Yeah. I mean, Thrain is just a bit of a beast. Like he's fight 6, shoot 4. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Strength 4, D8. The difference is he comes with, so he's got 3 wounds and 3 fate. So obviously Thror gets his weird fate reroll thing, which if you're rolling hot is just insane on the Arkenstone because you basically get infinite fate as long as you keep rolling 4-ups. But like, if you actually want stuff to die using one of your heroes, then I think you've got to use Thrain because he gets the Master Forged 2-handed axe as well, so he can just be cleaving through warriors and some big guys. He also re-rolls wounds against Azog, I believe, which is niche but always nice to have in your back pocket.
Just in case.
But yeah, if you wanted a pure Thralls list, I think this is quite a themey way to do it. Personally, I think if you want to make it more competitive, you drop Thrain as much as it hurts and you put in a captain, because one thing that's become very apparent in the games I've played is you have to have March if you're using a pure Dwarfs list. Otherwise, there are some scenarios you just can't win. Like, it feels bad to lose Thrain because he's so powerful, but you need a captain in there to just get you moving up the board a bit quicker.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also just quite like the simplicity of this list. So
yeah, I mean, also this list would be an absolute bargain to put together. I think it's like 60-70 quid, maybe, might be a bit more, but like it would be very cheap to put together.
That's quite nice. Your second list then is similar. You've dropped, you've swapped 5 Kingsguard for 6 Warriors of Erebor with Shield and Spear to create that back line. So you basically just made your line a bit shorter. But then instead of Thrain, you've got Dane on Pig with 2 Goat Riders.
Yeah. I think this is, I don't know if it's good because I've never used it, but like theoretically this list feels very, very powerful because what Dane gives you is a bit like what Thrain gives you in that he can kill stuff. The difference is that Dane is strength 5, so he's even better, and he's mounted. And the thing he's mounted on is extremely tough. So like he is going to hit so much harder. And I think one thing that you really don't have with a Thror's list is kind of the threat from like a heroic combat, like slingshotting around. Whereas like if Dane's charging in with a Goat Rider in tow, maybe you're going to be on like such high alert because if he comes in and knocks your big hero down with strength 5 burly, he could very easily kill them.
Yeah, it does give the list a lot more threat because if you're facing an all-foot dwarf army, I mean, you know where they're going, you know how fast they are, like you can outmaneuver them fairly easily. But suddenly you've got Dane on Pig, and you're like, okay, I need to think about this more in advance because some shenanigans can be played. But equally, an experienced player who might be able to abuse Dane's relentless charging rule thing.
Yeah, it's true.
It does give you a bit more maneuverability with the Goat Riders. So I think it's a more exciting list, I would say.
Yeah, and like more options, and also like because it's green, you keep Dane's Master of Battle and the like deployment thing as well, and that also solves a little bit of a problem sometimes, which is you kind of run out of might. Although I'll talk about that in a second, why that isn't always an issue. But like, yeah, I think this list would be pretty fun to use, and with Dane marching on Cav, suddenly your movement goes, your basic 5-inch dwarf movement to, I think these guys have been moving like 13 inches, which is, if you're doing like an objective scenario where there's, one in the middle, can't remember what it's called. What's the scenario called where there's one objective in the middle?
Seize the prize.
Seize the prize. Yeah, okay, we'll call it seize the prize. But if you're trying to get to that objective in the middle and you're moving like 2.5 times faster than you normally would, that's quite a big deal. So yeah, feels good.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there are scenarios that you're going to need it, like seize the prize. So you march, you dismount a goat, you try and pick it up. Getting into the middle is going to be very important. Mm-hmm. So scenario, like straight up battle, the first list might be more solid, but actually, versatility, all-rounder, definitely the second.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got your 600-point list. Stick that in your Escaroth bow and smoke it. Love it.
I've literally taken this list to a tournament, and it's actually pretty good. Like a fucking maxed out nearly maxed out warband of Kingsguard is so scary because like you've got a bunch of fight 4, strength 4, D7 guys with throwing weapons and axes that can piercing in 2-hand. And like, it's just, they just deal so much fucking damage. Like it's interesting in this list, basically Thror doesn't really kill anything. The captain doesn't really kill anything. Girion either kills nothing or kills everything. And there's no in between. Like and then just the Kingsguard just kill everything else. Like, yeah, it's pretty remarkable. But yeah, this list kind of has everything you need, really. Like the idea is basically your Warriors of Dale would just sit behind and spear support where appropriate, but otherwise they're just there as a bit of a range threat. And the captain, uses his 2 points of might to march you up, get you where you need to be, and then you just stand where you need to be until there's none of your opponent left, and then you've either won the game or they've run the objective off the board. But but yeah, we'll probably do Dale later. But a quick piece about Girion. One of the swingiest heroes in the game. Like if you're rolling hot, which I do tend to sometimes, it's just unbelievable. Like a strength 4 bow that can fire 3 times a turn with 3 points of might behind it. For any like relatively low defense captain, it's absolutely terrifying because he can just, I mean, as we've seen, like what's the name of that Goblin Town hero with strike? Grinner. He just OTK'd Grinner in one of our battles.
Yeah, he just fucking shot him down, didn't he?
Just shot him to death, and it was like, yeah, it was just like, oh, but yeah, he can do that, and yeah,
I'm pretty sure in that same turn you also killed. I killed like 2 other randomers.
Well, so he shot Grinner twice and then killed another warrior all in one turn, and it was just like, well, yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. That's how it be. But yeah, it's also nice because Girion's 3 might with strike, so you can just come in later in the game and put in some work. But yeah, and Thror just doesn't die. He stands in the middle being a banner. He's not going to kill much. I think that is a real weakness of Thror, is he's strength 4 with no modifiers at all. And like generally with Thror, I mean, I'm not saying this is strictly always correct, but like I think it's nearly always right to save at least 1, ideally 2 might points for his fate rolls. So it's often the case that like you don't really bother with a strike off because like if you lose your defense 9 with hypothetically like 4 or 5 points of fate if you use your might and roll fairly well, so you just kind of take the hit and then just wait for them to run out of might. Yeah,
I like it. I like the list. I feel like it's in between the other two. Like it's a little bit spicier than the first list, but it's not quite as spicy as the second list. But it's got its tricks. It's got its synergies. It's fairly all round. It's got a kind of pseudo mobility in the march. Mobility. Yeah, I like it.
And it's definitely at the lower end of like the mobility you need to win a game. Like I think this is the bare minimum you need to actually compete in a lot of scenarios.
Moving more than 6 inches.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's worth noting that March is better on dwarves than it is on normal models, because going from 5 inches to 8 inches
ratio wise, I suppose.
is a bigger deal than the other way. But yeah, it's still not great, and
the total is
also,
still less.
Yeah. The other problem is in Maelstrom, if this gets split up, and only one of your warbands is marching and it's your weakest one, that then becomes a lot more problematic. So I think that's where, for instance, the second list would just be much better, because you could just use Dane and the Goat Riders to try and maneuver towards the other portion of your army if you were stuck in a Maelstrom. Whereas I think with all the others, you just resign yourself to fighting in, your separate warbands, which isn't ideal.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all there is to say. It's quite a straight. It's. I think it might actually have the least model variety of any faction. ? Like I'm trying to think what other faction, like full factions in the game, have fewer model types.
Well, Goblin Town's close, but they've got more heroes.
Well, yeah, and you can take mercs and the basic Goblin Warriors, so that's the same. But yeah, you definitely have a broader variety of heroes.
Well, a broader variety. But I mean, you've got 4 named. Sorry, 5 named, and I think they might have 4 or 5 named. I think they've got 5 named as well.
So maybe it's the same.
King, Grinner, Scribe, Golem. I think. Oh well, Merc Captain and then Captain. So same number of captains.
Actually got one. You've actually got one less. There you go.
One less.
So
Goblin Town is one less. But there might be something else. Okay. Well, first I'll ask: are there any final thoughts on this for people collecting? Any advice? Things that you wish you could have told yourself or whatever?
If you want a faction that is going to be super reliable, super consistent, and is probably never going to win you a tournament, but is also never going to put you at the bottom table, this is the way to go. I did an OT. Oh my god, it must be such a long time ago now, where I recommended it as one of my top 5 beginner armies, and I think like the reasons are pretty obvious. Like, it's pretty affordable, it's pretty easy to paint, and it's pretty easy to play. I think its lack of alliances are maybe not great. Like, actually, the green ones are good, but like, I think the weakness is you're never going to want to convenient alliance it, so that then lowers the variety of stuff that you're realistically going to use it with. But it is cool, and I've very much enjoyed playing with it over the last year or so.
Very nice. Well, that concludes this episode of Before You Buy. Thank you very much for listening. I've been the Mayor, and you've been joined by OT.
Bye, guys. I've just had a message from Onod where he wants to add his thoughts about Thrors to the recording. I'm quoting directly: "They're massive nerds, and their mums make milky tea."